Hello to you watching this. If you're welcoming back, then hello, welcome back, and thank you. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Bree Cheyenne. Welcome to the Liability YouTube channel, where I mostly talk about unsolved crimes against children, anything from older to newer. Thank you so much to everybody who has recently subscribed, and also, of course, those of you that have been around for however long you've been subscribed. Every single one of you, thank you. I recently reached 300 subscribers, which was really exciting for me. So again, thank you so much to all of you that are new and all of you that keep coming back. Hit the subscribe button and notification bell to stay updated on future cases if you have not already. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's case. The disappearance of a 3-year-old British girl while she was on vacation with her family has sparked nationwide interest in solving her case, even leading to the development of a Netflix docuseries. Her parents are still holding out hope that they'll find their daughter and alive. It's been 14 years that they've been holding on to this hope, while also having to dispel allegations of their own involvement. This is the story of Madeleine McCann. Madeleine Beth McCann was born on May 12, 2003, in Leicester, England, UK, to parents Kate and Jerry McCann. Both of her parents were physicians and practicing Roman Catholics. Kate and Jerry met in 1993 before marrying 5 years later in 1998. They welcomed Madeleine in 2003, followed by twins, a boy and a girl, in 2005. Madeleine herself was described as an extroverted child, very active, talkative, alert, with an easygoing relationship with other children. The McCann family, along with some of their friends, decided that they wanted to take a tropical spring vacation in the country of Portugal. Staying in a resort in Praia de Luz, the McCanns were accompanied by coupled friends along with their kids that they had known from time periods ranging from like a few years to only a year. The group arrived to the apartments that they would be staying at for the duration of their 7-day trip on April 28, 2007. The McCanns were staying in apartment 5A, a 2-bedroom ground floor apartment, and the remaining guests were not very far from them. There were 2 entrances to apartment 5A, the sliding glass patio doors, and the front door, both of which were accessible to the public. There was one window in the children's bedroom that had a metal exterior shutter, which was controlled by a cord inside of the window. The McCanns said that they kept both the window and the shutter closed throughout the entire trip. The tragic day would come on May 3rd when the adults were having dinner at a nearby restaurant while the children slept in the apartment. The McCanns put their children to bed around 7 p.m. and went to meet their friends for dinner at the Tapas restaurant at 8:30. Madeleine was put to bed wearing a short-sleeved pink and white Eeyore pajamas next to her comfort blanket and a plush toy she called Cuddle Cat. The restaurant was located about 160 feet from the apartment, which means that in order to get to the apartment, one would have to walk alongside the street and through the resort to the other side of the pool to reach it. The McCanns, from where they were seated at the restaurant, they could see the top of the apartment, but they could not see the ground floor, what was going on with the doors. The parents had a system where they periodically checked on their children every half hour, with Jerry making the first check at 9:05 p.m. They left the patio doors unlocked so that they could easily let themselves in and out because, of course, it would have only locked from the inside. He recalls that the children's bedroom door was left more open than he had remembered leaving it, but the children were otherwise asleep and fine. Before leaving, though, he did make sure to leave it only slightly open again. Jill Tanner, one of the trip goers, went to do a check on her own child not long after Jerry went to check on his, and she says during this, she spotted a man carrying a child. It was when Kate went to do her own check at 10 p.m. that one of her parents' worst nightmares was realized. Upon her arrival to the apartment, the bedroom door was again left wide open. It wasn't until Kate went to shut it and it slammed as if there was a draft did she notice that the window and shutter were open. Madeleine's blanket and toy were still on her bed, but she was gone. Kate checked the entire apartment and, still not being able to find Madeleine, she ran back to the restaurant in a panic, yelling, "Madeleine's gone, someone's taken her."
As I think people are aware, we were checking regularly on the children. and it was during one of my checks that I discovered she'd gone. I mean, I can't really go into any details about that, but I'm sure any parent will realise how that felt.
Did the panic set in immediately?
Yeah, pretty much.
The resort soon after activated their missing child search protocol, and 60 staff members and guests searched for Madeleine until 4:30 in the morning. At the time of her disappearance, she was described as very slim, having shoulder-length dark blonde hair and bluish-green eyes, with the right one having a distinct brown spot. Inspector Gonçalo Amaral, who was the head at excuse me, I'm definitely going to butcher this, Policia Judiciaria, or PJ, which is what we're going to call it, the PJ, in a nearby city named Portimao, took the lead on the case. In Kate and Jerry's initial interviews, one of the things they noted as odd was that Madeleine had asked them the morning of her disappearance why they didn't come into her room when she was crying the night prior. In hindsight, some took this to mean that maybe her abductor had been in her room the night prior. Police came forward 2 days after Madeleine's disappearance on May 5th, 2007, to say that they still believe Madeleine was alive and that she was being held within 3 miles of the resort. An investigation was launched, but mistakes made early on may have jeopardized Madeleine's chances of being found alive if she still was. For some reason, apparently, police weren't given a physical description of Madeleine for many hours, which I just do not understand because how did they know who they were looking for? Police also did not make any house-to-house searches, and Interpol didn't release a global missing persons alert until 5 days after Madeleine's disappearance. The apartment she disappeared from was not immediately closed off, so when DNA was eventually found, it could have come from up to 20 possible people that had entered the apartment beforehand. Apartment 5A was later sealed off in August of 2007 for further forensic testing, but not before it was open to tourists for at least a month prior. Following an anonymous tip, a man named Robert Murat was taken into consideration. He is what Portuguese police refer to as an arguido, which roughly translates to suspect, but more closely means someone being questioned under caution, more like a person of interest. Robert Murat was born in 1973 in England, but lived at Casa Liliana with his mother, which was not far from the resort. The PJ requested a warrant on May 13, 2007 to search multiple residences and vehicles associated with Murat, as well as wiretaps for phone numbers of him, people that knew him, his family, friends, all those people. This was granted, but searches and interceptions turned up nothing of relevance to the case. Murat was officially declared an arguido on May 14, 2007, and was brought in for questioning. He told police he had nothing to do with the disappearance and offered up an alibi, saying he spent the day with friends before returning home where his mother was. Following the questioning, he was released by the PJ. Police from Madeleine's hometown of Leicestershire decided to aid the Portuguese police in their investigation, although it officially remained within Portugal's jurisdiction. For the first time ever, the British government sent in press officers to handle media coverage because the case was just getting a crazy amount of attention. Madeleine's parents set up a fund by the name of Madeleine's Fund, leaving no stone unturned, on May 15, 2007, to raise money and awareness. The fund generated millions of dollars within the first year and even more since then. They've used the funds for their various separate investigations. In the days leading up to and on the day of Madeleine's disappearance, several witnesses told police that there were a few men behaving quite strangely outside of apartment 5A. Some of these were several reports of pushy and intimidating men asking for money for charities, including one man asking a tourist that was staying near apartment 5A for money for an orphanage. On the day of Madeleine's disappearance, a handful of people reported being stopped on the street for charity collections. In a televised interview in May of 2007, When asked if they let their thoughts drift when thinking about Madeleine, this is what Kate had to say.
You have to keep believing that Madeleine is still going to be found alive and well.
Absolutely.
Do you ever, though, allow yourself to drift towards negative thoughts?
I think in the early days we did, and I think that's inevitable. I think any parent who's been through this does that, certainly in the first few days. We don't now. We're actually a lot stronger, a lot more hopeful now. And we have to be hopeful. It's what keeps us going and keeps us focused.
They were also asked about their strength as a couple.
I think that everybody has just been incredibly impressed with you as a couple and how you've dealt with this. There was a period after a week or so where you looked as if you were almost broken, and who could not understand that? And then there seemed to be a sort of a strength come from somewhere. Is that a fair point? Is that what happened, and what brought that about?
I think that's definitely true, isn't it?
Certainly, you know, at the end of that first week, there was so much emotion that we had spent, and we actually had a period where we discussed this openly, that we felt completely devoid of emotion. And the analogy that I like to use is a bit like when we were students and you got to your overdraft limit and you'd gone beyond it and there was just nothing left in the tank. I think physically and mentally were shattered. But you know, as you gradually get more on an even keel, we started to get back into the black, and we'd also worked tirelessly behind the scenes to put support mechanisms in place, including our legal team, the response with the fund, which was really driven by offers rather than us thinking that we needed it. And once these were in place, then it helped us to focus on what we really needed to focus on.
Well, everyone who's watching, who's been following Madeleine's case over the past 3 weeks, just wishes you all the best. Thanks very much, Jerry. Thanks very much.
Some people weren't as convinced of their innocence, and talks about the McCanns as possible suspects first came from the media during June of 2007. The media started calling them out for alleged inconsistencies in their witness statements and claimed that Tanner's sighting of the man carrying the child was made up basically because the group had made a pact of silence to cover up the murder. One of the inconsistencies reported was that Jerry said during his first interview that they had entered through the locked front door. This was altered in his May 10th interview when he said that they entered through the unlocked patio doors. However, I did notice when I was going through the PJ files that it was only Jerry's witness statement that said the front door. Kate's initial statement did say that she had entered through the unlocked patio door. Kate and Jerry both agreed to have a mouth swab taken for DNA examination. The exterior shutter to the bedroom also raised some questions. According to police, this shutter could not be opened without force and noise, and there were no signs of forced entry. So far, none of this really points to the McCanns to me yet, because they left the patio door unlocked, so an intruder could have easily gone through that door and left out the window. Not everyone thought the same though, and suspicions of the McCanns continued to arise throughout the end of June into August. Mark Harrison, who was the National Search Advisor for the British National Policing Improvement Agency, suggested searching different places, including Robert Murat's property, all of the tripgoers' apartments, vehicles, and places associated with them. He also recommended bringing in Kayla and Eddie, who were two Springer Spaniel Sniffer Dogs. Kayla was trained to signal the presence of human blood, while Eddie was trained to only bark when he detected the scent of human remains, even if they had been buried, burned, or submerged in water. And when I say only bark, I do mean like only bark at that scent. He was trained to not bark at anything else. That is just, dogs are just so smart. They are literally the light of my life, like such good doggies. During a search of apartment 5A on July 31st, 2007, both dogs gave an alert behind the sofa in the living room, and Eddie gave one near the dresser in the main bedroom. The McCanns rented a house and a car following Madeleine's disappearance, and during a search of that house on August 2nd, Eddie barked when he smelled Cuddle Cat. If you'll recall, that was Madeleine's toy that she carried with her all the time, and that toy was now laying in the living room of that house. On August 6th, Kayla and Eddie were taken to a parking lot with 10 cars parked, including the McCanns and Robert Murat. Both Kayla and Eddie gave alerts at the McCanns' car. Hair and fibers were collected from the areas Kayla and Eddie gave alerts, and they were sent away for testing. Before the results were even received, the McCanns were brought in by Portuguese police, who told them that it was now a murder investigation. The DNA results showed that there could have been up to 5 contributors, and the lab technician's opinion was that the results were far too complicated for any meaningful interpretations. The McCanns were given an arguido status on September 7th and brought in for questioning again. During Jerry's interview, he said that he had nothing to change about his previous statements. He admitted that they brought multiple drugs for things like hay fever, stomach issues, etc., like normal bodily pains, but he says that they never gave the kids anything to make them sleep. The going theory at this time was basically that Madeleine had died in apartment 5A as a result of an accident, possibly an overdose, and her body was then hidden for some time before being disposed of with the car. However, me personally, I just think it would be highly unlikely for an accidental overdose to occur by 2 practicing physicians. Now, that's not to say there wasn't an accidental death at their hands, but if it was, I just doubt it would be through those means. And if that was the cause of death, then I just doubt it would be accidental. The McCanns were not the beneficiaries of any life insurance policies for their children, so there was no motive there, nor did they even have any for them to begin with. One question about the alerts that were given by Keila and Eddie, Jerry initially said that he did not have any explanation for how they came to be. His lawyer asked that he be questioned about this again, to which Jerry then said that Madeleine often got nosebleeds, but he was unsure if she had one during the time that they were on vacation. Now, for Kate's interview, she was questioned for 11 hours, to which she either completely outright refused to answer, or she said that she had nothing further to add than what she had already told them. Now, this may come off as like suspect to some people, and it kind of does to me too, but on the other end, I think it could also be that she has negative feelings about being labeled an arguido, especially if they really had nothing to do with the disappearance. They later decried these claims that they had drugged Madeleine, calling them outrageous. The McCanns were still allowed to leave Portugal, and they returned back to England on September 9th per legal advice. This coming after they said that they were going to stay in England for as long as they needed to, but once things started getting, a little murky on their end, they left. The next day, an 11-page report was created by the PJ alleging that Madeleine had died in apartment 5A, and the McCanns, as well as their friends, used the dinner and check-ins as a cover-up. Now, I understand friendship loyalty, I get that, but like I said earlier, some of these people, they only had known for like a year. So I'm personally just having trouble conceiving that these people will go that hard for somebody they've known for such a short period of time. I mean, I guess it's not impossible, but I mean, would you help someone cover up the murder of their child that you've known for like only a year? I personally would not. Some people even speculated that they were a group of swingers. A subsequent examination of Kate's diary and Jerry's laptop did not reveal any information that was of relevance to the case. Chief Inspector Gonçalo Amaral was eventually removed as the head of the investigation due to his negative comments to the press about British police, saying that they only pursued leads that the McCanns had asked them to. But wait, there's more. An 8-year-old girl named Joana Cipriano from Portugal was abducted almost 3 years before Madeleine. Her mother and uncle were subsequently convicted after confessing. However, the mother's confession was withdrawn the next day as she said she had been beaten by police to confess. Although not present for the assault, Amaral did help cover it up and was convicted for falsifying documents. Gonçalo Amaral was replaced by Paulo Rebelo, who was the Deputy National Director of the PJ. He received a letter from Kate in December of 2007 asking that everyone set their differences aside so that they could work together to find Madeleine, that being the priority. At some point, it was discovered that the McCanns had deleted multiple entries from their phones before they were handed over to the PJ. It's unknown what they contain, but Kate's phone had almost 40 deletions and Jerry's 16. The 1-year anniversary of Madeleine's disappearance came on May 3rd, 2008, and Kate and Jerry still have faith that their little girl was still alive. Kate asked that everyone pray like mad for Madeleine. The PJ submitted their final report on the case in July, and due to insufficient evidence, it was officially closed and the McCanns had their arguido status lifted. At some point during this year, the Madeleine Fund hired Oakley International, a team of private investigators based in Washington, D.C. They disregarded Tanner's sighting and instead focused on a sighting from another couple, Mary and Martin Smith, a couple on vacation at Praia de Luz during Madeleine's disappearance. The couple reported to police on May 6, 2007, that around 10 p.m. they saw a man carrying a child toward the beach, very similar to Jane Tanner's sighting. The child's age, attire, and appearance matched Madeleine, and the man apparently looked uncomfortable while he was carrying her. Based on this, the investigators developed some electronic sketches. Upon the completion of the final report, the fund did not want it released. This is because it painted the McCanns and their friends in kind of a bad light after they suggested that Madeleine may have died from an accident after wandering out of the unlocked patio doors. Nonetheless, the sketches were sent to Leicestershire Police by 2009, but they were not released publicly. After some urging from the McCanns with a petition to Prime Minister David Cameron, Scotland Yard launched Operation Grange in May of 2011. Scotland Yard, also known as the Metropolitan Police, is the name used to refer to the Police of London, just in case, because I had no idea when I was reading. I was like, who is Scotland Yard? During their investigation, they tracked phone calls of those that occurred near the scene around the time of the disappearance, searched near Praia de Luz, and interviewed many. They released a computer-generated image of what Madeleine would look like then at age 9. In 2013, UK detectives said that they had new evidence and new witnesses. In response, Portuguese police reopened their investigation to work alongside Scotland Yard. By 2015, they had taken over 100 statements, collected over 1,000 pieces of evidence, and questioned over 600 people, many of them being sex offenders. Their efforts were fruitless as no new developments emerged. In June of 2020, German police came forward with a man they believe was involved. Then 43 years old, Christian Bruckner has been serving a 7-year sentence for the assault of a 72-year-old woman in 2005 in an area that was near Praia de Luz. Now, aside from the sexual assault of the 72-year-old woman, he also has previous offenses, including abuse of children and drug trafficking. But he has denied any involvement in Madeleine's case. German police went on TV asking for the public's help with information that related to a phone call Bruckner had for 30 minutes on the day of Madeleine's disappearance. So if you are that person that has any information about that, German police are looking for you. So theories about what happened when this sweet little girl went missing over 14 years ago has sparked a lot of debate, but I'm just not entirely sure what I believe. So the main theory, of course, being that the McCanns were allegedly involved, with most coming to a consensus that it would have been an accident. The results from the Sniffer Dogs, they definitely make me like side-eye a little bit, and I'm like, what's going on with that? As well as the deleted phone entries, like, also what was that about? However, neither of those are conclusive, and I just also feel like, why would they push so hard for this to continue being investigated? Even after the PJ had decided they're no longer even suspects, they still wanted this case opened and resolved. One can say they were just trying to keep up appearances, but I feel like they have just worked so hard to put such a big spotlight on the case, more so than I would expect a guilty person to do at least. Like I mentioned earlier, I just also am struggling to believe that people they've known for such a short amount of time would be so loyal that they'd cover up the murder of a 3-year-old. Maybe that's just me wanting to see the good in people, but I really hope not. The next theory is that Madeleine had wandered out on her own through the unlocked patio door and something happened to her. This one I also don't believe as much, because not only would she have somehow and for some reason opened the window, but as Kate expressed, she would have had to have opened the door to the patio door, shut it, and the curtains, get past a child's gate that they had up, as well as a regular gate. It's just sounding like not likely. So the last theory is that an intruder came in and abducted her. Evidence that points to this is that the patio door was unlocked, so they could have entered through that and escaped through the window. Let me know what theory you resonate most with in the comments below. We have reached the end of today's video, and I share this case with the intention of it hopefully reaching the right person that can maybe get it solved. And if you are that person, you can use the link in my description to leave any tips. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. You can hit the subscribe button and notification bell to stay updated with future videos. And if you do have any cases you'd like me to cover, you can also leave that in the comments below. if you're feeling inclined to share this story, you can go ahead and do that too. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart if you stuck with me all the way until the end. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't seen my last video on The Boy in the Box, the link to that is also going to be in the description if you want to watch. Stay tuned for my next video where I'm going to be talking about the Zodiac Killer. Bye y'all.